loves carbs, but they're terrified of eating them. What's going on, fam? Angus Beef here. Thank you so much for stopping by to click on this video. I really appreciate it. I'm going to be chatting in this week's Anti-Diet TV episode around the fact as to, well, if you think about it, everyone loves carbs, right? But vast majority of people, as a result of being on a body transformation for a period of time, are petrified of eating them. Now, what's interesting about this, fam, is that like where it all stems from in terms of carbs fear and stuff like that, or even just fear of eating any particular food in general, is all a result of your exposure to mainstream diet culture and obviously your immediate environment. Now, if you, for example, live around housemates or friends or family who in their past got taught that carbs are bad and that you should fear sugar, chances are, in terms of, well, yeah, along the grapevine, you're going to get instilled into you that eating carbs are bad and that sugar is the devil and that you'll get diabetes if you eat too much carbs and sugar, etc., right? So obviously you might have been told other things outside of that, but as a nutshell, that's typical fear or typical like insight that people will be given, right? And I'd guarantee that if you've been told that before, right, chances are that you probably never asked the person like for studies or for literature or proof as to why eating carbs are bad, right? And that's the thing, is because like you should question everything that you're being told, and more often than not, the person won't be able to provide for you stats and actual studies proving their point because they just heard it from some old mate online as well.
You do free weights, all right, but it's circuit training. Is it CrossFit? Yes. Do you even lift? No, it's not CrossFit. Don't lie to me. Yes, it is. Do you even lift? And as you can see, this is an endless cycle, which is CrossFit.
Right. I know that my hand definitely goes up for that in terms of me taking on board a lot of truths that obviously I thought were truths at the time, but actually aren't. Like there was a time where I feared carbs just as much as I fear, a snake coming at me or like a big ass fucking spider or something like that, right? Like there are legitimate fears, and being scared of food should not be one of them. Because the thing is, fam, is that if you want to win this game long term in terms of being able to control how you look and how you feel and be able to have peace amongst food in general, well then the least amount of restriction associated to food, the better. So in other words, if you say, for example, have any allergies or intolerances to particular food, well then that is a scenario of when you should not be eating something, right? Or if you have like a particular condition that entails being careful around carbs, absolutely, yeah. But if you're someone who, say, for example, is just fairly healthy but just a bit overweight and trying to lose fat, well then one of the worst things you can do, especially if you're active, is try to cut out carbs. Because the thing is, fam, is that you can actually train your body to function well on carbs. Because believe it or not, we are meant to function on a lot of carbs and a moderate amount of protein and a decent amount of fat for hormone health, right? But because of diet culture and because of mainstream media and all this sort of shit that we see flying around us, this is where we get that preconceived truth that cutting out carbs is a necessary thing to do to lose weight. But then if you think about it, right, if you do that, or even if you have had experience doing it, right, ask yourself, like, are you happy doing that? Like, are you performing at your best? Do you feel like you've got a functioning, well-rounded relationship with food doing that? And chances are, no, because it's not enjoyable to be only eating, protein sources and only like a select amount of fruit and veg or whatever to be able to keep carbs low and then obviously heaps of fat. Like that's not a sustainable, enjoyable way of living. And obviously if you feel that that it is a sustainable way of living, well then ask yourself, like, if it meant being able to get the same results and feeling better, would you actually include carbs? And obviously, if you're honest with yourself, the answer would be yes. And that's because, well, why wouldn't you, right? Carbs are there as like an awesome, like energy-based food. Like you can eat still wholesome food and get in lots of carbs. And I think it's kind of like, it's kind of as if, like, if you can see it from an angle that there's pleasure carbs and performance carbs, or there's just solely tasty carbs, and then there's vitality carbs. Like either way, you want to have a mixture of both. And naturally, if you're someone that's eating mostly pleasure carbs, yeah, probably not a good idea, because that means that you're missing out on calories that could be isolated for, say, fruits and vegetables and complex carbs like pasta and rice and bread and sweet potato and stuff like that, right? Whereas, say, for example, the other side of things, if you're only eating complex carbs and not incorporating any of your food choices towards stuff like, crumpets or some lollies or some chocolate or whatever it might be, like it's about having that balance of both while also getting in adequate protein, adequate plants, and getting in enough calories for your goals, yeah? So, moral of the story here, fam, is that for anything that you achieve, right, in terms of like losing weight or optimal health or whatever, you need to keep the strategies going longer term. So if you want to maintain an awesome, well-rounded body and relationship with food, and you do that while cutting out carbs, be aware that you'll pretty much need to keep that going long term if you want to keep your results longer term, unless you know how to reintroduce carbs safely, which is what I will usually do with someone if they've come from a background of keto and then are just like, Angus, fuck, I keep binging on carbs, like everything's just fucked and I keep gaining weight, please help. Like the solution forward is actually incorporating lots of carbs back into the system again. See what I mean? So if you're someone who is at kind of like the mercy of your relationship with food and you kind of feel like a bit lost around carbs and stuff like that, like the way forward is learning how to make all food groups work for you, because they all serve a purpose, right? It's a means of having balance across them all, and always checking in with yourself in terms of how your association toward food is with the food choices you're making, and then obviously tallying it in sync with how your aesthetics are improving, how your performance is improving, all these sort of things, because if they're not improving, well then this shows that there's potentially holes in your approach, all right? So do me a favor, if you found this valuable, share it on your story, share it on your social media, tag me, let's get a bit more people seeing this anti-diet message. Because the thing is, fam, is that I'm sick to death of people that are cutting out carbs unnecessarily. Like, seriously, you can make the game so much more easier for yourself if you've got carbs included and the least amount of restriction possible. Because trying to adhere to a deficit can be hard enough, so add to that cutting out all sorts of different food and fearing sugar and carbs, not a good time. But thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, light up the convo below, use the comments. I'd love to keep the conversation going. Otherwise, if you're keen to learn how to be able to master this stuff and be able to have a lot more moderation around food while also controlling how you look and feel, get in touch. This is stuff that I love, helping people master themselves through my anti-diet coaching. There's a whole host of links in the description below if you're team YouTube. Otherwise, if you're on my social media, you can look around my page and check out how to get in touch for what my coaching is all about. Otherwise, big love. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time in Anti-Diet TV. Peace.